Hi, my name is Jasper. In this video I will show you how I texture paint. I'm still learning, some of the things might not be accurate, this is why I'm going to do an update video in the future. The effect I want to achieve is what you see here. If you look at the reference image, you can see that the light and shadow information is painted on the texture. However, the light information shouldn't be detailed. The rest of the details will be compensated by the shader in the rendering phase. First, I put a base color, in this case a dark blue. I start by placing the shadows. I try to imagine where the light could come from, in this case from above and from the front. This is why the front part will be brighter. To do this, you can use a lighter color than the base color, or you can use the screen blending mode. Now here you can see I placed the light information a little bit too high, so I will move it in the front. My goal is to create an even gradient transition. To make the belt line in the middle, I use what is available. In this case, I use the geometry. I select the edge loop, and with Ctrl B, I do a bevel to add more edge loops. First, I select the center faces in edit mode, then I go into texture paint mode, and I create a mask. I paint with a dark color. As you can see, now I have a line in the middle. I also select the other faces, and using a lower strength, I do the same thing. So in this way I will have a smoother transitions for the shading. In the previous video I've shown you how I do UVs, and the advantage of having a UV flatten out nicely of a simple mesh. It is not only to optimize the space, but because it's much easier to apply details such as marks, symbols and logo. I load the previously made texture and you can see the symbol fits the geometry without distortions. Once I finish, I simply dissolve the edges I've created because I don't need this extra geometry. Here I will paint this metal plate. Metal is a little bit tricky to paint because metal reflects its surroundings, and so in theory you have to paint the reflections of what is around the mesh. However, being a 3D model, and if you want to use this for an animation, it's really difficult to imagine what type of reflection I should add. So what do? I found a solution that is split into parts. The first is to paint some fairly generic light informations, simulating a not quite smooth surface, and giving a color just to identify the type of metal used. First, I keep in mind the direction of the light, so at the front it will be a little bit lighter, brighter colors, and at the side I will use darker colors. In the reference and in the videos where they present the neon character, the color is an amber yellowish tint, which makes me think it could be something related to gold and copper. Knowing this helps me to look for the right tint for the smudges or the imperfections. The second part of the solution is to use the shader and activate the metalness factor. Plus, if you want to do as I do, you can use the diffuse texture as a factor for the roughness map. In this way, I can create a little bit more interest in the surface. Hey guys, before I go any further, if you found what I've shown you useful so far, I would really appreciate if you would help me with the YouTube algorithm with a like or even a comment. Here I'm starting to make the pants. To make them, I will use two textures. The first one will be the base color, where I'm going to paint the main generic light and shadow information. In the second one, I'm going to draw different designs, such as those in the inside part and the outside part of the pants, and also like the sheens and the calves. With the first texture, I'm trying to paint the general light and shadow information, keeping in mind that the light comes from the front and above. So, for example, the inner parts, such as legs or the shins that are facing downwards, will not have direct light, and I will make them slightly darker. Here you can see the result. It is still a work in progress, and I will probably have to reduce the contrast, but I will do this towards the end of the work when I have a complete view of the model. Here I paint the side band. I use the same technique as shown at the beginning. I select in edit mode the faces to be painted, and I switch to texture paint mode, so I can create a mask. In the front part of this band, I paint a lighter area, so I can simulate a worn material due to the rubbing of the arms on the suit when the character runs. Many of the details I'm doing are more likely to be adjusted once I have an overall view of the model. The aim is to create more contrast in the important parts such as the face and less on the secondary details. Otherwise, it will create a conflict in the design and the visual hierarchy. If you haven't seen it yet, I also did a painting session in my previous video. In my channel you can find a live session I did, where I model and paint other parts of this character. I will be doing some live session where I paint the model, so if you want you can subscribe and keep updated with the next sessions. Here I'm doing what I did previously with the black belt on the shoulder. The only thing is that I'm just adding some details and then I'm softening them. I want the right amount of details where it creates and builds interest, but don't take too much attention. Here you can see I'm starting the vest. I baked an ambient occlusion map from the high resolution model to use as a mask. Before I paint the details on the vest, I lay down all the dark and light informations. In this case, I'm following the shape of the breast to add the shadows. As I did with all the other parts, I'm going to create extra geometry that I'm going to delete at the end. In this way, I will have a mask for the shading. This video ends here, and we will see in the next video.